Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to our next panel, Head of Community Impact at Teach for All's Global Learning Lab, Kaya Henderson, and Blue Ridge Lab's Design Insight Group members, Carolyn English and Alonzo Jones.
Great one, Jeff. You're so brilliant. Here's
They told me no.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Kaya Henderson, and I lead community impact at Teach for All, where I get. Oh, thank you. Testing 1, 2, 3.
I'm on.
Testing. I got it.
I'm on.
Testing. Nope.
I'm on.
All right. Thank you. All right. I'm back. My name is Kaya Henderson. I'm very flexible when it comes to technology, apparently. And I lead the Community Impact Laboratory at Teach for All, where I get to work in 48 different countries, helping to think about how we put community at the center of our work. I feel really lucky that I get to do that because that's the way that I've lived my life. That's the way that I lead. And I fundamentally am excited about the fact that we are on this panel today and we get to talk about the thing that is my jam, right? Engaging the community. And I have with me, I'm also a board member of Robin Hood, which is how I'm here. And so I'm really pleased today to have two of some of the most amazing people that I have met with me today to talk about community engagement. One of the ways that Robin Hood engages the community is we actually look for people within the community to help us identify the challenges that communities are facing and to build solutions through our Design Insight Group at Blue Ridge Labs. And the Design Insight Group is actually a community of over 800 New Yorkers who provide guidance and feedback on new ways to use technology to improve the lives of New Yorkers experiencing poverty. And so these two handsome people are two of our members of the Blue Ridge Design Labs. This morning we're honored to have Miss Carolyn English and Mr. Alonzo Jones. And they are going to share with us the role of community engagement in increasing mobility from poverty. Alonzo is a 25-year-old resident and active community member of Brownsville, Brooklyn, which we've heard a lot about. And I think it'll be interesting to hear Mr. Alonzo's take on Brownsville. And he's worked with the Pitkin Avenue Business Improvement District, the Brownsville Partnership, and the Brownsville Community Justice Center in many positions, including photographer, peer mentor, public speaker, and basketball coach. He's also a musical artist with plans to pursue a future in music production. Alonzo has been involved with the Design Insight Group since 2015. And Miss Carolyn, if you've known her for a minute, you will know that she has been a servant to her community for her entire life. She was born in Birmingham, Alabama. She left the South after threats of violence as a teenager, moved to New York City, and joined the Masaryk Towers Housing Cooperative, where she still resides and works today. She has been a nurse. She's been in the airline industry. She's back to nursing. She's been a community activist, and she's been involved in the Design Insight Group since 2017. Join me in welcoming them.
Thank you. Thank you.
So friends, community engagement is a term that gets thrown around a lot. And I think different people have different definitions of what community engagement means. So that we can set a shared understanding for this conversation, tell me what community engagement means to you, Alonzo.
To me, community engagement means not coming in with a plan or a goal, a set data that's in your head from what you see off of the media, the internet demographics, of what you think is going to help the community. community engagement should be actively coming out into the community, speaking to people, finding out what their needs is for the community, what they want to be done, and taking that information in to create a plan for it, not coming in with something that you think is going to work and not even knowing about the community.
All right. Have you had an experience where that has happened?
Yes, I actually have. When I was working in Brownsville, I was working with the Brownsville Partnership. It was a campaign that they were working on called the 1,000 Jobs Campaign. To me, I disposed of the name just off of because I'm from Brownsville. We know that there's more than 1,000 people in Brownsville who needs help, who actually needs the help to get a job. So to come into a community and say, yeah, we're going to do this 1,000 Jobs Campaign, what about the 1,001, 1,002? What about the rest of us? So that alone just made me feel like, don't come into a community saying, hey, we want to help 1,000 of you, when you got 9,000 other people just sitting here, one that's needing the help. Go out and find out actually what's a better target goal to reach instead of saying your set goal that you want to do.
Ms. Carolyn, what does community engagement mean to you?
Oh, wow. I wish I could talk like Alonzo. I tell you, very simply put, in my view, community engagement is the involvement of those individuals in the community and those who come into the community partnering in a dynamic relationship with each other for outcomes. Okay? Very simple, in my view.
Partnership. Define that a little bit more.
All right. Partnership, often you have organizations, programs, people with different interests in what's going on in your setting, which is the community. And they may want to come in to define some product that they have or need. They want to donate money to the region, or they need the data of some issue on health or whatever. And they will come in and engage with you, maybe those of us who are in leadership, to find out information in the community. So we come together with a specific plan and goal and partner in reaching that goal, maybe through collecting the data or whatever.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about how you've seen that work in your community.
Very interesting that we've had a number of groups that have come in at different times for different settings. If I may, let me describe the setting that we're in very quickly. I live on the Lower East Side, not far from where the 9/11 experience happened. And in that area, we are about 1,100 apartments that have been there for 50 years and have gone through a number of issues. And when there are stats needed from different organizations, whatever, they'll come in and ask in the community, can we participate in that data collection process? And we do, through either the community board, through other agencies that are related to the board itself, because we're a co-op, we're a small co-op.
And are people explaining why they want data from your community?
Usually they do.
Okay.
And it may be for health. It may be along some of the subjects that we're looking at today, the poverty level. It may be regarding education again with the children. And of late, the problems of asthma and those things have been a problem, so that they've come in that area looking at that.
Alonzo, we were looking at some data in the green room. We saw a number of maps that actually highlighted Brownsville. Tell me about how that data squares with the data that you have about Brownsville.
For me personally, when I see the maps and I see the numbers in my head, first thing honestly I think of is you found that information somewhere online. I don't honestly think that you went out into the community. Well, I'm not going to say that you honestly, but in general, when I see maps like that, I don't think they honestly went out into the community and actually sat down and asked each person for their input to collect that data, because some of the stuff you can just look back in from old collected data and just assume that, hey, it's still the same thing and went on to it, when actually the statistics or that number may have changed if you would have went out into the community and actually engaged with community members to get that information.
Yeah, I think one of the things when I think about community engagement, a lot of times I think we define it as, did you listen to the community? Did you go out, did you explain what you are here for, and did you listen to what the community has to say? But to me, real engagement, real partnership is about serving that community. It's about understanding that you might have expertise and the community has expertise. You might have data and the community has data as well. Theirs might not be on a spreadsheet or on a map, but they have data that is as important as the data that, you know, our partners might have. And that you get to the best solutions when you actually co-create those solutions with the community members. When you actually put those two pieces of data together, you get to more sustainable results, you get to results that have better outcomes, and I think we have to shift, fundamentally shift our view of what community engagement looks like. It actually presupposes that there are assets in that community. And we look at these communities as broken. We feel like if they could have fixed themselves, they would have, and that's not true. And so I think I am pressing for us to get to a different level, a different definition around community engagement. This is why I love the work that Blue Ridge Labs is doing. Instead of coming out and saying technology is going to solve all your problems, they're saying to the community members, what are the problems? How can we solve them? We have some expertise around technology. Tell us what the problems are and how you might use them. Alonzo, will you talk a little bit about your experiences with the Blue Ridge Labs?
Well, when it first started, I remember walking down the street with like 2 or 3 of my friends, and it was some people from Blue Ridge Labs just like, hey, come join this focus group.
I need you to use your outside
They
voice.
was like, hey, come join this focus group. We want to get your information. And just off of the name Blue Ridge Labs, me and my friends was just looking like, yo, they like some type of blood donation clinic. We're not about to go sit there and talk with them. So we walked down the block, we walked past them a few times, and then when we came back, they was like, hey, we're doing a focus group where we want to take your thoughts, your ideas, and put it into something positive. Like, we want to make an outcome out of it. So we sat down, we found out about it. What intrigued us was they hit us with the incentive. They was like, hey, come tell us your thoughts. We're going to give you this incentive. So it pulled us in.
What was the incentive?
So 25, like, a gift card.
Okay.
And then from that, we came in, we sat down, we did the focus group, we got the incentive, but from that, it just made me feel like, hey, they're taking my thoughts, they're listening to it, and then they're gonna call me back with a product to test it out. And my greatest experience from that was when I was working with Good Call, because the day that I first came to a Good Call focus group.
Wait, can you tell us what Good Call is?
Good Call is basically, it's something that everybody needs within my community and all the boroughs. It's like an operation hotline where you call a hotline. It helps you get through the system easier, help make your phone call, get your phone call out to people. So like,
This is when you're arrested.
when you're arrested, like, when you get arrested, you call 1-800-GOOD-CALL. You call that number, they'll help you get your phone call through and get in contact with the right people that you need to make your transition out of that system faster and easier.
Okay.
But with that, the first day I came to the focus group, I was sitting there and I was basically telling them after the focus group was over, I was like, if this was put out 2 to 3 months ago, it would have helped my friend in his situation, because that same day that I came, I was telling him, like, one of my friends just went through something last night where he got arrested. He wasn't able to make the phone call. He wasn't able to get the help that he need. And it's crazy that I'm sitting here with the Good Call group right now telling them the ideas of something that could have helped me and somebody out that night prior. And from that, now that I see, like, with Good Call, it's like basically I seen my ideas and my thoughts get turned into something that's being used. I was walking in the community a couple days ago, and I've seen somebody with the armband on, and they was telling me about Good Call, and it was just like, it shocked me. It's just like, hey, if you know, that was one of my ideas.
Nice. Thank you. Ms. Carolyn, you've been involved with the Design Insight Group at Blue Ridge Labs,
Yes.
the Blood Donation Bank. It does sound like, I'm glad that you went to the thing. I'd be like, Blue Ridge Labs, I'm not exactly sure. But Ms. Carolyn, you've been involved with the Design Insight Group. Tell us a little bit about some of your experiences.
Well, it's interesting, in listening to Alonzo, the listening piece came when Blue Ridge came to Masrick Towers. It was following a series of events that were very traumatic for the little village. I call it a little village. And the first one of great trauma was 9/11. Post 9/11, people became isolated because family members were afraid to come to New York City to care for them. They didn't want to cross the bridges or the tunnels. The individuals who lived within the community, who had been there for many, many years and were aged and were some of their friends gone or whatever, became more isolated. And that's what we found that was the number one problem in that area. The individuals were isolated from the community itself.
Yep.
It was hard for them to go out. If they went to the store, came back, and that was the only time you saw them. Fast forward, we had 2 other incidents, well, really 3. A 7-alarm fire came, then Irene came, then the big superstorm Sandy came. And all of those traumas just built one on top of the other. So there was obviously post-traumatic stress disorder going on in the site. We had different organizations, different groups come in from local community centers would come in to help, of the universities. I received support from a nursing group when we went out to get data about what was happening with the individuals, so they gave us nurses. Well, nurses end up getting more technical data and in terms of health and where people were, but something was missing.
And the Design Insight group answered that.
The group showed up through one of my resource people.
Okay.
And they came in different groups with the incentives, which were great. And I had a session with them, and really to get a real definition of what the Design Insight group did. And once I understood it and what technology could do, because I'm not good with technology, but once I understood what it could do, I said, look, I need your group to go out and hit the benches. I need you to sit and listen to what's going on in mass, because it made a difference when you had a large group of people going out in the summertime, hanging out, and they're all strangers. Yep. They've not been there before. They needed a new and a fresh look at themselves. And many of them worked in that way, in a reflective way. What came out of that session when we got back together to debrief, we found that they wanted the technology. The question was how to apply it, because many of them had issues, concerns, a lot of morbidity, ill health, and you can name it. So
what did the solution look like?
The solution looked like this. Let's design a lab where seniors could come to. In particular, we started with the seniors.
Because they were isolated.
Isolated. Yeah. What was special in this group, because they did come, it was new to them, they wanted to learn, but we couldn't get everybody out still. So we still needed nurses to go inside the home and bring people out. And there was a gentleman, if I can tell you the story quickly, he's 85 years old. He was in his home. As a matter of fact, he got his food delivered, okay? And he had a serious cardiac issue, and all he would do is sit and watch his fish in a huge fish tank. Well, one of the nurses could work with him with that, talking about the fish tank. She got him out to come to the lab just to say, it's a bright sunny day, come walk and go to the lab, because you have a need. He needed to hook up his cardiac monitor to the phone or to the computer so they could read.
So his doctor had access
right.
to his information.
But she wanted him to ambulate and get outside. Needless to say, he kept saying, I'm afraid of the computer. One of the members of the DIG group, the Design Insight group, was an engineer, a young engineer who volunteered his time to stay on and understood how we needed to meet the community. He worked with this individual, with the nurse. The patient would not turn on the computer. That's how afraid he was of the computer. And that says something. But he would touch it and jump back and touch it. Eventually, he finally turned that computer on. Fast forward a year later, he not only hooks himself up, he has a spreadsheet for his data. He's figured out his menu, how to eat. He's able to see all of his medications, how they interact. And he's 85, now 86. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so that was an important end result, an outcome. And that is the outcome from listening on the ground. And it would not have happened if they had not hit the bench. And in talking to the individuals on the bench, they also engaged with the nurses and whomever else, so that we all partnered, I like that word, we just all got together to figure this out. I think that's
That's what good community engagement
good
looks like.
community engagement.
Thank you.
Right.
All right, we have our final question, and that is this. This room here today is filled with 250 people who are the heads of nonprofits, community-based organizations. They work at foundations, they're policymakers, they're leaders in the media. Who else are you? Academics, right? There are lots of people who work in and with communities like yours. What advice would you give them for thinking about community engagement in their own work?
For me personally, I would say strip the titles and everything else away. Put yourself in my shoes and look at it as me. You're me from the community. When somebody comes into your community with a set plan and goal that you feel like that's not gonna work, reevaluate it and think about before you come up with that plan and that goal to go out and get accurate information, accurate data, ask the people within the community, and then come back to them with a plan that you feel like, hey, this is what you said you needed, this is what we can try to help with and see if it works. And I guarantee you, it'll change a lot of the outcomes from what's been going on and your perspective of what community engagement is.
And to add to that, to continue the conversation. The conversation is often what
Don't talk to me, talk to them.
Okay? The conversation is what's really needed, an ongoing conversation. Often when the organization comes in, there's an interruption. That interruption is detrimental to a group. Having experienced it for many years, and in the setting that I'm in, where you have an interaction going on, you bring the data, we might interact, but it's limited. Unlike what happened with Design Insight, is that it continued. The partnership went on and continued with the involvement of the individuals there, and the conversation continued. Because without that constant interchange, there's no sustainability, if that's what we're looking for.
Yes, amen to that. I mean, I think what I would say to you all as people who are going into these communities is I'd echo Alonzo's point, which is put yourself in his shoes. If somebody came into your community, how would you want them to engage with you? How would you want them to treat you? I think a lot of times we don't remember that, in fact, the solutions are right in the community. People who are experiencing these challenges know very clearly what it takes to get out. And they can tell you that if you listen. And I think the conversation has to be ongoing. The best way to do good work and to do big work is to start by doing small work together. And when people do small work together and keep the conversation going, they can do bigger work together. And they keep the conversation going and they can do bigger work together. And so our hope at Robin Hood is that all of us, grantees, partners, whatever, that we actually engage community in real, relevant, authentic ways, that we see our community members as co-creators of the solutions, and that we partner with them to bring about the big change that we need in order to see New Yorkers move out of poverty. Join me in thanking my panelists. Enjoy the rest of your.
Thank you.
Thank you.